Firing chain is armed.
15.
Go for main engine start. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
People who know me wouldn't accuse me of being a NASA booster, given sort of where I came from in the 90s. But it goes back to the old thing, the old saw. If you want to do something, you're going to have to pay for it. The Bush administration didn't pay for it. So I think the Obama administration was right to take a look at the program and assess whether or not it wanted to continue. The thing that I think the administration missed, and this is really inexplicable, is that for 20 years NASA had been accused of having no vision, no future, no direction. And I think the Columbia Accident Investigation Board highlighted that as something that contributed to the shuttle failure. And so we got together, and the Bush administration came up with a vision. And a Republican Congress endorsed it with Democratic votes, and then a Democratic Congress endorsed it. So finally, you had a political consensus about what the future of the agency should be. And you had a political consensus about how that was going to be implemented programmatically, and that was Constellation. The Obama administration, when he ran in the primaries, said he didn't want it because it cost too much money. He wanted to spend that on education. That flipped around, I think, when folks realized that Florida cares about space and was an electorally rich state.
I remember my grandfather explaining to me, this is what America's all about. We can do anything when we put our mind to it. We can do anything when we put our mind to it. And that was what the space program described, that sense of possibility and always, reaching out.
So now he wanted to accelerate it, came into office. The first year he was in, he actually provided additional funding. And then lo and behold, his first budget, the one that he developed, he canceled it. So meanwhile, he's talking about, well, there's no vision, there's no future. It's adrift. Well, it was perhaps in 2001, 2002, 1997, 1995, 1986. But in 2009, it wasn't. The issue was money. And I think the CABE came through, made that pretty clear. Now, they were pessimistic about the prospects for getting the money. And in today's budget environment, we say that's realistic. Again, I argue this is your investment in the long term. So if you can't come up with $3 billion a year in addition to the baseline for NASA, you really have a bigger problem. And the bigger problem is that you've eaten your seed corn and you're starting to, slaughter your milk cows. I don't know what's a good analogy here. So it wasn't a function of there not being enough money. It was a function of the president deciding he had other priorities, and one of the priorities was not NASA. And everything since then has been spin.
We will invest more than $3 billion to conduct research on an advanced heavy lift rocket, a vehicle to efficiently send into orbit the crew capsules, propulsion systems, and large quantities of supplies needed to reach deep space. In developing this new vehicle, we will not only look at revising or modifying older models, we want to look at new designs, new materials, new technologies that will transform not just where we can go, but what we can do when we get there. And we will finalize a rocket design no later than 2015 and then begin to build it. And that's conservative, given that the previous program was behind schedule and over budget.
You can make an argument that Constellation was the wrong answer. I think given all the constraints that were placed upon the agency, including the fact it had to use shuttle heritage hardware, and that came out of Congress. It had to do its best to basically keep that workforce employed. Constellation was about the sweet spot of meeting all these constraints. If you don't like the constraints, which was a reasonable thing to do, to say that these constraints are wrong, then you needed to change the constraints. The administration didn't take a look at that. It just threw the baby out with the bathwater.